Welcome back to Investing and Trading Live, sponsored by Online Trading Academy. As always, my name is Josh Lilquist, and we have a good time in the window here talking about the markets. It's funny, we talk about the stock market, and there's always someone peeking in our window here that's walking by, just seeing, what the heck are we doing? And that's why it was pretty cool, Al, when we do these investing classes. A lot of people that are walking by in the building we're in here in Bloomington, they always see our sign and say, what do you guys actually do here? Mm-hmm. And to explain it in a quick conversation, it's actually pretty difficult because nobody knows anything about the stock market. That's why we have these investing classes, to introduce you to what the stock market is, how it works, how it functions, and then how do you actually participate and make smart investing decisions in there. Congratulations to those of you that did get set up for this free investing class by texting the word investing to the number 210-210. If you did miss it, just text the word investing to the number 210-210 for 2 seats for that class, and we can see how we can help you out, or whatever goal or objective that you have financially. Let's see if there's a strategy that's designed for that.
Yeah, you mentioned, trying to explain the stock market. Mm-hmm. And part of what makes it a little more difficult for us to explain what we do is that we don't just talk about the stock market. That's only one part of the financial overall market. We've got options, futures, Forex, crypto. There's a number of things that are kind of included in that overall financial market. Mm-hmm. Stock market is only one of them.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Let's put a pin in that, and let's talk about those other markets in the third segment. Sure. So for people that want to explore and expand their knowledge and skills at one point in these other markets like options and futures and the currency market, we'll talk about that in the third segment, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But Al, we mentioned in that first segment that we want to trade and invest based off a zone. Institutions will call it blocks, but we're going to call it a zone, which is an area of interest where you would want to get in or out of a position. Because as we talked about in the beginning, you're not going to be exactly right on the price that you're buying or selling. So that being said, for the past few weeks now, we've been talking about Caterpillar.
Right.
It was an opportunity that we're waiting to get to our price. And that's the great thing about trading and investing is you can set your buys, your sells, your entry points and exit points, and let the computer execute that for you. So this particular stock, Caterpillar, it was an OTA pick from one of our teams, and then we have a demand zone and we have a supply zone outside of current price, which means we're just waiting for price to get there. I mentioned, I think it was last week, and when people say, "Hey, what are you going to go buy right now? What are you going to buy in the stock market?" I said, "I don't know, but I'll tell you what I'll do when it gets to a certain price point." So Caterpillar is still pending. We're still waiting for that. But Intel, I just want to address Intel a little bit. We talked about a couple things. We had an OTA pick. It was roughly around $30, $31, that area. And the cool thing about trading and investing is you're not going to be right every time. So that's why you want proper capital management around that. And I think I said, here's our zone, but I like the one a little bit lower on a larger time frame because I have other things I have to do. I want to be able to set this trade in advance and just let it take a few days to get there. And it took about a week to get there, and it's currently in the zone, and as we're doing the show here, and it's respecting that demand zone that I had talked about. Will it work? I don't know. But it doesn't matter because I'm protected on both ends. So I want you to talk about why it's so important to have that zone and proper capital management around that. That way you can do that with consistency, but also that other C word, confidence.
Yeah, and the most important thing is to make sure that, I guess, look at every trade that you do as something that could go wrong. What's the worst case scenario in any trade that you do? You have to be prepared for that. One of the ways you do that is to have the proper risk management strategy in place. So those zones, part of that zone is your risk management. So you have an entry within that zone and you have a risk management which is a point at which you're going to get out. If you're right and that zone is respected and you have a profit, you also want to identify when to get out if you're right. And by that, I mean, what is your profit potential? And it should be a large profit potential. You want to try to do at least a 3-to-1. Whatever your risk is, Try to look at and identify a trade or investment that has a 3-to-1 to start with. It may be much more than that.
And we'll introduce you to that stuff in these investing classes too. We're talking about some different terms.
Yeah.
We'll kind of show you that stuff in the investing class.
Yeah, and one of the things I think it's important to point out is when you were saying that you were looking for a zone that gave you a longer time frame to wait for it to work for you.
Yep.
So one of the skills, and part of being successful is not just having knowledge, it's having the skills to use the knowledge. And one of the components of the skills that we teach is patience. You don't have to, if you're a trader or investor, you don't have to do something all the time. You don't have to trade every day. You don't have to make a trade at any particular time, but set up something that gives you the highest opportunity of this working in your favor with that high profit potential, but with the greatest amount of risk management in place. So patience is something that's a hard one to learn, but it comes with time after you have started to develop these skills, after you've traded for a while and you realize that if you just wait for price to come to you, your chances of being successful are significantly greater.
You're right. Yeah, I like you brought a couple things up there is to be able to learn how to do this. Now, think about it this way. We have characteristics that we feel that you need to be or to have to be successful in the financial markets. And one of them is coachable. That's one thing we can't teach. You have to be coachable and willing to learn not something new, something a little bit different. And if you've been doing the same thing over and over and over, which is just putting money in an account and hoping it goes up. I mean, talk to anybody that's probably in their late 50s, between their 50s and 70s. And if that's what they did, here's what most people are going to tell you, because the stats are most people don't have enough to retire. They're going to say, I wish I would have done something different with my retirement accounts. Don't be in that boat. Do things a little bit differently, learn those skills, but be coachable. Be willing to learn it. And then you just have to be decisive and have discipline to follow a plan. And we'll introduce you to these characteristics while you're here in one of our classes. But we do these classes here locally. And the great thing is we have a lot of coffee with that too. So these classes, they're about 2 hours. And just real quick in about 15, 20 seconds, explain what somebody's going to learn when they come to one of these investing classes.
Well, I started out in that first segment by talking about the different assets. It's not just the stock market, it's the options market, futures, Forex. We talk about those different assets. And the reason that that's so important is that whatever your goals are, there is a right path for you that might be different than somebody else. So for somebody, one person, maybe trading stocks or exchange-traded funds is the right thing for them to do. For somebody else, it might be options or futures or Forex. But we'll talk about the benefits and the characteristics of each of those, talk about how the market functions, and just really the most important thing is what I said before, how to follow the money. Yep. And once you can identify where the money is going to be active, where that big money is active, you have the opportunity then to put the odds in your favor of something working for you.
Yeah, I like that.
We'll talk about risk management, talk about a number of things. We go over, and that 2 hours is packed with things that we could easily talk for a week on.
Exactly. That was about 55 seconds.
Sorry about that.
But I'm glad you did that, because the what we cover in these classes, it's new to most people, and people want to know what to expect. They don't want to go somewhere blind and not knowing what to expect, and that's why we do the show here. So we can give you examples of what to expect when you come to one of these classes, so that way you know what's happening. So just simply text the word investing to the number 210-210 and come into one of these classes to be introduced to some of these concepts and techniques that we're talking about. If you have 401ks or IRAs, or maybe you just want to learn about how the market actually works. Why does it go up? Why does it go down? And how do you put smart investing decisions within there? Just text the word investing to the number 210-210 for 2 seats for that class. So, Al, we were talking about, you mentioned proper capital management and you mentioned 3-to-1 win-risk ratio, which basically means you don't have to be correct every single time. And in my example with the Intel opportunities or potential opportunities, the first one would have been a small loss. But that's okay, because small losses are good. You never want to have that big loss. So we'll see what happens with this other Intel, see what if demand holds and it goes up off of that. But that's where you need to put that proper capital management so you have more comfort doing that. So that being said, Al, if somebody is looking for an income strategy. You mentioned at the beginning of the show that this is now a trader's market.
Right.
It's not necessarily long-term buy and hold because market's not doing anything. It's pretty much sideways or down. It's down on the last couple of years here. So if it's a trader's market and somebody wants to be able to have the opportunity to have an income strategy with the market, what are some of the things that people can focus on to have those opportunities?
Well, first of all, understand what income means to people. And if you're looking at additional income or maybe even your primary source of income, it means something that you can utilize now. If you have income from a job, you're not going to work for 20 or 30 years and then get your only paycheck. You get a paycheck every week or a couple of weeks or once a month. Same thing is true if you're looking at the markets for income. It needs to be more short term. And that can vary from person to person. There may be some people that are trying to get income on a daily basis, some weekly, some monthly. Again, that's part of a plan that we put together that's more specific to what is right for you. But what are the assets that you trade then for income? A lot of people only know the stock market and may try to trade stock for short-term income, but that's much harder because the high cost of some of the stocks out there now, some of the equities, keeps a lot of people from having enough shares to be able to benefit from it. But there are assets that really they were designed for short-term income, and those are the things like options and futures in the foreign exchange market. So in these classes, we talk about what those are and what the benefits are, why you can use them or how you can use them for short-term income. And it's actually not only while you are kind of in the accumulation phase of your life, while you're still working, maybe looking at it as additional income with your job, but what happens when you retire and the income from your job is gone? That's a great time to have the knowledge to be able to utilize these income sources when you're in retirement. And those are assets that you just simply haven't heard about because there's not a lot of people teaching them. And if there are, it's maybe somebody who's teaching only one. And they'll tell you that options, for example, that's the only way to go. You really need to learn how to trade options. Somebody else might be saying the same thing about Forex or futures. The great thing about the Online Trading Academy is that we have instructors here, professional instructors, that trade and teach all of those. So you don't have to go from one spot to another another if you want to learn how to trade different assets.
Yep.
And those are assets that you can get into and out of in a short period of time. And one of the great things about them is they have leverage. So every dollar that you invest or you have in an account, an investment account, can control the multiple of that dollar. It could be 50
Let's
to 1.
break that down on the next segment, Al, because I think a lot of our listeners probably want to know more about that leverage, how to trade outside of regular daytime hours or work hours. But just a great thing you mentioned there is they don't teach this anywhere else. They don't teach it in school. And if you think about this, if you get a newsletter or something from your broker or your advisor saying you should go do this because of these reasons, do you think there's a bias there? There's a possibility that there's a bias there, and they want you to do certain things potentially for their benefit. Well, one of the great things about Online Trading Academy is we train and teach everything. And we don't, Online Trading Academy doesn't say you have to go buy this or you have to go buy that. We train you so you can do it yourself. That way you can have your best interests and you don't have to trust a stranger. Think about that. Trust a stranger to manage your money. And that's comments I've been hearing from a lot of people is they don't want to have somebody else dictate their future, somebody else manage their hard-earned money.
Right.
Because who's going to have your best interest in your financial future? It's going to be you.
Sure.
You just have to learn the skills and techniques, and that's what we cover and dissect and really introduce you to in these free investing classes. By the way, these are 2-hour classes. We're local here in Bloomington. We have classes in Woodbury and also Maple Grove. So if you're in the metro area, we have you covered. We have our local academy, but we make sure to go out to a couple different areas so it's closer for you. So simply text the word investing to the number 210 for 2 seats for this class. When you do that, you're also going to receive a financial quick start kit. And in this kit, there's some topics in there on how to help you get started right away. So if you want to start to make smart investing decisions, come to one of these classes, get that financial quick start kit. That way we can introduce you to these techniques and strategies that the institutions are doing, the public doesn't even understand. So coming up next, Al, as we mentioned, let's talk about those other assets, those leveraged assets that allow traders and investors, the retail public, us, trade with less capital, but also trade any time of day. So if you work during the day, there's opportunities for an income strategy at night. This is Josh and Al investing and trading live. We will be right back.